Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. The show is about to begin.
Hi, I'm Terri Long.
And I'm Jeremy Eden, and we are the co-CEOs of Harvest Earnings.
Welcome to the Elephant in the Boardroom.
Hi, Terri.
Hi, Jeremy.
How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Good. All right. Pleasantries out of the way.
Back. Moving right along.
So I was remembering when some years ago I went out to meet the then CEO of MGM Studios. And we had a perfectly good meeting. But at the end of it, I might have either asked him what he was most frustrated by, or he may have just started, I don't remember, but the answer that he gave me was the thing that hardest for him as a CEO and that frustrates him the most is he felt that people, by which he meant his team, other advisors, all kinds of folks, were economical with the truth. And I love that expression. Now, he didn't make it up, but it was the first time that it kind of stuck in my brain and made me think about people who are in positions of power, maybe the CEO, but in positions of power wherever they are, and how people are economical with the truth with them, and that makes their job really hard. So I thought maybe we'd talk about that.
Yeah, let's do. In fact, I think we referenced this in our last podcast with the expression that we only recently heard, and I forget who said it, so apologies to them. But the CEO never gets the whole truth or a cold cup of coffee.
Right.
Which is a great line, and it is absolutely true. And it's not just the CEO, right? It's a boss. Just substitute boss for CEO, or maybe not the cold cup of coffee part, but the whole truth. Yeah. Because people are economical with the truth, which, as we were saying earlier, is really just the same thing as saying people have lies of omission, right? They are holding things back. And almost entirely, of course, what they're holding back is something negative, because who holds back good stuff? But probably even that a little bit. Probably little good things happen, and somebody feels like that just doesn't rise to the level of, telling the CEO, particularly if, say, a customer compliments you personally. You're not going to then pass that along to the CEO. But anyway, for the most part, it is keeping bad stuff, or also just presenting a picture that is rosier. Might be a rosy picture, but it's rosier when painted to the CEO. And you have a fun story about that.
I do. So this was, oh my God, going way back. The CEO of Hilton Hotels had engaged us to do one of these projects we do. But over the course of the time we were doing it, he would naturally go visit properties. That was part of what he considered his job, to see what the customer was getting and what the services properties were providing him. And he loved going on these trips. And he generally came back feeling like, my God, things are really great. We're really providing a great product, a great service. What he apparently didn't know or ignored was every time a property heard he was coming, they went into kind of a manic fit of prettying the place up and personalizing his experience. So suddenly the minibar didn't have the cheap little bottles of vodka. Suddenly they had his favorite brand, just in his. And it wasn't really a minibar, it was more like a refrigerator. Because which room did he stay in? Well, he stayed in the presidential suite, or whatever the nicest room that property had. There was paint put in various hallways and places. So he, was walking through a wonderland that did not really reflect what you and I might have experienced at that time at those properties.
You're reminding me, and this story we have absolutely already told, but of the in a gaffe that makes us laugh, I think, not in a podcast, but about the waiter telling you at a restaurant of a celebrity chef that, oh boy, yeah, he shows up, but boy, they clean like crazy and they do all sorts of stuff right before he shows up. And you're like, hasn't been here for a while, so.
And I think we can name names. He's no longer with us, sadly. It was Letellier and it was Joel Robuchon.
Yeah, well, so anyway,
Great chefs. But yeah,
we have lots of stories about CEOs and again bosses who have not been told the truth. There was a major situation at a client that had a significant amount of outdated inventory that came to light as in one of our projects because somebody finally did sort of speak truth to power. I don't know if we remember, but we don't know if that person knew they were being brave or just thought that this situation was known and and was proposing a way to handle it. But certainly people did know, and up the chain, there were quite a few levels who, did not know. So it does bring into question the controls that probably were not in place because some things ought to rise just because of the systems in place in a company, but lots of things do not. You have another story from also years ago about a program.
well, but before we move off that one, so there were serious consequences to this inventory problem in terms of reporting and
Financial. I mean,
both the financials and then the laws regarding reporting of those financials. I mean, it was a big thing. And when the CEO and CFO discovered that they had not known about this problem, it was quite, a problem for them. And they were very unhappy that nobody had told them. And the interesting thing is, it probably started off several years earlier as a small little thing that no one talked about. But then it grows, and then it's grown, and no one wants to go, oh, I should have told you this, but I didn't. And then it grows more, and suddenly people are in this position of, how do I broach something that I should have broached earlier and didn't?
Yeah. And we in our projects we have we've built our own software system called Greenhouse, and part of Greenhouse is an implementation module that we have early warnings built in because that's what every boss really wants. They do not want surprises. Surprises are bad. Sometimes even good surprises are not really welcome because you would have preferred to have known that, well, you talk about this with our projects all the time, that somebody might say an idea is worth 100,000, but if it's really worth 200,000, then that extra 100,000 can't be planned for in advance. So yes, it's a good surprise, but knowing that extra 100 was coming would have been useful in deciding whether or not to spend on whatever. So there is that. So our implementation process has early warnings built into it. So, I mean, we have advice for the boss on how to make sure that you're getting as much of the truth as possible. But I mean, obviously and we'll talk about that in a minute, but for teams, we just want to say a couple of things. And one is that you can talk about this one. We exaggerate the fear.
Yeah. So it is just human nature to, it's like people are conflict averse. They're also fear averse. We tend to, as people, exaggerate the negative consequences that might happen if we take an action. And so if we think that telling our boss or their boss, even worse, is going to have some negative consequence, maybe it's just the person we're telling has a temper and will react angrily toward us, even though they're actually happy that they're finding out about this. But shooting the messenger. We're going to be the recipient of the anger. Nobody wants that. Or that it's going to be, well, why the hell didn't you tell me this before? How did you screw up? Oh, and it's, by the way, it's bonus time. This is what's going to be in my brain when I evaluate you. That's the unsaid part. Or I'm going to get someone else in trouble, and then they're not going to like me, and they're my friend, but they're the ones right? There's all these fears we have. and we exaggerate them in our head and therefore don't do often. It's not that we're not doing the right thing, but we're not doing the best thing, which is communicating the truth. And most of the time, those fears do not actually transpire. They don't actually work out that way. And so it's necessary for people to feel brave in light of the fears they feel, but they're not really having to be brave because often those don't really happen.
The other thing we would say, I think, is if you can have a mentality of, I am doing a favor by pointing this issue out, this problem, this glitch, this situation, it is better for management to have complete information so they can deal with something. Now, a lot of employees are thinking, I've told them 1,000,000 times and nothing has ever been done. And that is a valid concern. And it's something that we address in our projects in a big way. But I would say keep trying. There's always a new hierarchy, right? So maybe you told one boss, but you didn't tell the replacement because you've been living with this problem forever. But you're doing a favor to management by giving them the most complete picture so that they can deal with it. And if they don't, then that's on them, not on you.
And you had said we a lot of our advice is for the bosses. One of the great things about this early warning system is it sets up a culture. So first of all, there's no anger when there's an early warning that something might not be working. And bosses like to hear it, and they're really delighted when it turns out that because that was raised, it was dealt with, it was fixed, and the next meeting, what had been an early warning of a problem is now turned into we've solved it, or we figured out another way. And it's up to the bosses to set this kind of culture and norm that it's okay. We're not going to get angry. We want to know, and we trust you enough to then fix it or get our help in fixing it or dealing with it.
So we have a few pieces of advice for the boss. And one is to try and build it into the culture, but make it official. Now, we think for the most part, mission statements are a joke. But one thing you almost never see is this, is, speaking truth to power, is being transparent. You do see honesty sometimes, but I feel like that's usually meant as don't lie or be honest with customers or with each other. It's not really about the lie of omission. So, if you've got one of these goofy mission statements or, the posters that go up, for the love of God, at least make this one of your points. But also, and this is a big thing that we do again in our projects, we fix all ills. If only everyone knew this. But
it's all about behavior.
A lot of it is. So when boss, you're walking around and talking to people, don't say, how's it going? Ask, what are the issues you're facing? What makes it difficult for you to do your job? What is going wrong? What problems do you face?
Yeah.
Ask for the negative. Because if you ask for neutral or for the love of God, it's I was gonna call somebody out. Somebody that I used to work for used to walk around saying, it's a great day at fill in the blank company. And on the one hand, it's kind of fun. It's a positive, nice thing, but it certainly doesn't encourage you saying, oh, well, it wasn't so great. I've got 6 customers trying to close out accounts, and every time they go to zero, I close them. They're suddenly reopening the next month, which of course was a real issue that I faced. You don't want to sort of bring down it's a great day by pointing out the misery. But so ask for the issues. Make it part of the culture, but also, and this is advice that we give to steering committees when people are coming in and presenting ideas. You can't get angry if somebody tells you bad news. I mean, this is really, really hard, right? It is really, really hard. This is just human nature. But if you do, and particularly if you shoot the messenger, you're not going to get more bad news. People are just going to go, "Whoop, I'm not putting myself in that line of fire."
And almost every idea to improve a company is to fix some problem. And that problem has to be acknowledged and understood. And we had a CEO that we said on the very first day of the first steering committee, you know, he was a very sophisticated guy. We knew we were kind of talking down to him, but we said what you just said. When people come in with these ideas and they're going to tell you about problems that you didn't know about, that they're planning on fixing, don't get angry with them. And he kind of poo-pooed, that he needed this advice. At the end of the day, he said, I'm glad you warned me. I sat on my hands all day long, commending people for their ideas, when I'm thinking in my head, oh my God, how did we not know about all these problems? And in fact, it was in this context that you referred to a story I had that I haven't told yet, which was the CEO and someone came in with the idea to shut down a program. And this was a guy who had a very nice demeanor about him, always pretty much in a good mood. And he starts on a rant. And we actually took a break because we didn't want it to go viral, that if you suggested some idea, he might go nuts. And we asked him, why was he going on this rant? It was just to eliminate a program. Maybe that wasn't a good idea. And he didn't have to do it. And he said, no, that's not what upsets me. What upsets me is I canceled that program 3 years ago. And I am just learning now that never actually got canceled. And what happens in that situation is that people who didn't help him understand what the real truth was get a reputation, right? We're always making judgments about each other. And you begin to learn that someone sugarcoats things. They don't really tell you the full truth. And that's not a good position to be in. You don't want to be that person. You want to be the person that people say, you know what? When we need to get to the bottom of things, Tom or Sue, they'll get to the bottom and they'll let us know what's what.
Yeah. Which sugarcoating things does, of course, remind me, which I believe we have talked about, but a certain head of a certain division of a certain very large company who used to refer to sub-zero gains instead of a loss.
Okay, I remember that well.
That was a good one. But
all right.
so
he didn't get an A for truthfulness, but he got an A for creativity and marketing.
He absolutely did. He was something. So I think that's about what we have to say on this. It's, employees, be brave, be honest, don't give up. If you spend a lot of time at work, try and make it as good as it can. I mean, not just for your company and for profits, but for your day-to-day in doing your job.
Yeah. And for bosses, don't talk the talk. Oh, I want people to be honest with me. You have to walk the walk. Those negative consequences that people fear that's holding them back, they have to know that's not going to happen. And the positives of being known as a truth teller are going to be apparent. So walk the walk.
Yeah, as you said earlier, it would be great if CEOs or, again, bosses would actually praise publicly the person who came out with it. In our inventory issue, I don't remember what actually happened, but if that person had gotten a pat on her back, that would have been great.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Go forth. Bye-bye.
Bye.